Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our chess variant series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and this time we're going to take you through a game I played with 1d4. It was going to be one of those live videos as always, but I had that weird thing where the video cut out halfway through, so all you could see was one single position, and I kept on talking. And also it was a rather long game, so it got rather long, so I was having doubts about whether I wanted to inflict another one of those on you. We're just going to go through the game in some sort of normal tempo then. So I wanted to try 1d4 now. I mean, 1e4, I got a good result, obviously, the previous game. And, it seems like Stockfish plays pretty much the same every time. So it's going to have to be me that varies. In any case, it's interesting to see what Stockfish comes up with against 1d4. And unfortunately, I'm not quite sure if anyone knows how I should do that, then that would be really cool. But I can't seem to get a fairy Stockfish to analyse on Wimboard. When it analyses, it just analyses for normal chess. I can only play games against it in pawn sideways, not analyse. But maybe I'll have a look at the documentation. Maybe there's a switch that I need in order to be able to make that happen. Anyway, Wimboard's good enough just to show these games, so that's good enough for me. So d4 and then knight f6, c4, and now the move c6. So heading back to a Semi-Slav, obviously aware that Mr. Beads was watching. One interesting thing about this, worth pointing out, is that if you play the move e6, then after knight c3, bishop b4, and bishop takes c3, then it's not really a problem for white that you've got double c-pawns, because you undouble the c-pawns with b3. So c6 was played, and now knight f3, d5 and e3. I'm going to be limited, by the way, in the number of variations I can show with Wimboard, because it just seems to, when you load a game, it just seems to only want to show the game and nothing else. But anyway, I hope it'll be okay. So e3 played just to stop black from taking on c4, because after you take on c4, black can easily just sidestep with b4 and put the pawn safe. So I've got to be able to take the pawn back straight away. But black played the move e6, and then I played the move knight c3. So we're back into a normal Semi-Slav Moran. I'm sure Mr. Bees is besides himself with excitement at the moment. So normally black plays the move knight bd7 here. That's the normal Semi-Slav, and I think that would have been perfectly fine. But Stockfish played d takes c4. Intriguing. Bishop takes c4, b5, bishop d3. Just following the main lines, but I'm a tempo up in actual fact. But here Stockfish revealed his idea. Can you guess it, actually? Would be the... Stockfish played the move a7 to b7, which, to be honest, it took me quite a while to understand what was happening. I mean, I think I gradually cottoned on to it during the game. A few more moves, but I didn't really understand it at the start. I mean, you always you play b5 in order to put the bishop to b7, and then later you play c5 and you activate the bishop. So what on earth was all this about? Well, if you can have a little think about it, and then we'll explain it in the next few moves. So castles played, and then b4. Well, that's quite normal in the Semi-Slav, so it wasn't unexpected, but you do wonder what the idea is. Takes, and knight d7. And I had a sort of a think about, what do I want to do here? I could just retreat the bishop and play the move e4, but one line that I always liked in the normal lines was to play the move b3 and just put the bishop on b2 and have them pointing towards the king's side. And I was also thinking that, black could play eventually b5 and then move the pawn to c4. So having the pawn on b3 to stop that seems like quite a good idea. And of course, he's got his rook attacking this pawn on a2, which is backwards. But I mean, at some stage, this is sideways chess. I'll always be able to play a2 to b2. Static weaknesses are not weaknesses, basically. It's just temporary weaknesses. So yeah, I'm gradually getting to grips with that. But yeah, Black's next move took me by surprise. Probably shouldn't have done, but yeah, maybe you can guess. It was g5, and I suddenly started to get an idea of why Black had played this move a7 to b7, because obviously Black's got the idea of playing pawn to g7 and playing g4 and queen h4. We've seen this before. But actually I suddenly realized as well that Black was probably also intending to play rook a5 to h5. Yeah, also very, very tricky indeed. I discussed a number of possibilities in the game. I can't really demonstrate variations very well on this board, so I won't talk about them too much. But knight e5 was one idea. Bishop b2 was another idea, but I was rather worried about g4, f5, just kicking away my minor pieces, and then queen h4 and HG. So I decided to do something which I think was quite solid in actual fact. I played the move g3. The idea is that after g4, the queen can't come to h4 quickly. And I was thinking of playing, bishop b2, knight e5. I can bring my bishop back to g2 to cover the my king side. I felt like it should be decent somehow. So HG played. So we've got the rooks active there. And I played the move knight e5. And what's the point of the move knight e5? Well, I want to try and hop ahead of the pawn on g4. And I'm also very keen to block the fifth rank somehow, So that's I was quite keen on that. And I've got my queen protecting some light squares here, so I can kind of interfere with the with anything that Black's doing on the king side there. So what did Black play here? Just see whether you can guess this. Yeah, I mean, in the Semi-Slav, of course, this is a good thing for White, playing knight e5. It's often pretty decent. Of course, in this position, it's d6, and I hadn't really, that had fallen out of my head, really. I have to say. Yeah, it's not really that you miss it completely, because I'm seeing a lot of these now, but it's just sometimes I think sometimes the imprint of a certain position is so strong in your head, and I've analysed Semi-Slavs for for months and months as a professional in total. So I think that you just miss things like this somehow. But obviously it's a decent move, getting rid of the knight there. So I came back to d3 there. But I wasn't too unhappy, it was the idea that the knight just moves away from f3 and I can bring my bishop back to g2. So that seemed all right, and well, I don't know. I don't know who would stand better or whatever, but I thought that I was actually quite decent there. I've got plenty of, you can think of plenty of ideas for White, even something like f4, for example, not a problem. Stockfish did something I hadn't expected, or I'd seen it, but I thought, I don't think he'll do that. He played the move c4, just disrupting my my knight. And big question was whether to take on c4 or whether to move the knight away. I decided in the end that I'd rather move my knight away. And, I'm trying to keep his position, not give him free activity, not open any stuff up, because he's got these lines against my king. I don't want to give him the mobility to come around, really, And so that's basically what I was thinking about. I was vaguely wondering, he might play queen f6 to h6, this sort of stuff. But the point was, after queen f6, I want to play the move e4. And after queen h6, I've got h4. I've opened up this line of the bishop on the here, and after h4, he's pinned. I hope you can see that. So Black played the move c takes b3, which shocked me, and then queen b6, and offering the exchange of queens. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, looking back, you think, well, maybe I should have just exchanged off queens. Would that have been sensible? Might well have been sensible, to be honest, taking on b6 and playing a4. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm not sure whether I can think that white's slightly better or whether black's slightly better there. Maybe black a little bit. I think black can play a knight to c4, quickly swap off this knight, and yeah. So I decided I wanted to keep the queens on somehow. Knight bishop e7, knight d3, knight f6, and knight e5. And there I'd really missed what black was going to do. I was trying to cover this knight g4 threat, and I just want to get my bishop to d. I didn't want to get hit by a bishop f5 pin on my knight. But maybe you can think what black did in this position. I missed this one. I was really irritated with myself. Black played the move d6, chasing the knight away. And, the key thing to realise about this is that this is just temporary, right? I mean, it looks like a horrible pawn structure, double pawns in the centre. But, of course, after black's chased this knight away, the pawn can move back to c6 if he likes, or even over to e6, whichever takes his fancy somehow. So, but okay, it's not so bad. I played knight f3. The pawn came to g4 and then went back to d2. Okay, it's been a little bit of a round trip, but okay, my knight was on b2 first of all. On d2, it's quite decent. It's covering a lot of squares, supporting e4, and it's just logical, where it is. So, that's not too bad. So black played the move bishop e6. I was maybe thinking rook h5 actually, followed by bishop f5. That seemed more natural to me, but played bishop e6. Rook b1 and then a4. And I was quite, I don't know, I thought my position was decent somehow. Yeah, I mean, putting aside this pawn on here that can always move back. I mean, in whatever structure, I felt I was decent because, I've got a solid kingside pawn structure. My king's not too bad. And I've got ideas for some pressure, simply, and whichever structure, whether it's, d6 or c6. So it seemed quite decent. He played c6, and now a5. If you take on that one, I'll take this one, I would say normally that white's got a slight edge here, but, yeah, difficult to say. Weird things happen because now he moved the pawn to h4. Yeah, now this was an interesting question. I think probably against a human opponent I might have played knight b3. Because I want to come into c5, but I was just very nervous about doing this against Stockfish and leaving my kingside undefended. So I played the move knight f3, bringing the king in. Now something that surprised me. I mean, wouldn't necessarily have, it's not like a shock then, oh my God, what's happening? But yeah, I hadn't quite expected it somehow. He just played positionally, so he just played like AlphaZero, bringing this pawn onto h3. Unfortunately, as you'll see later, that pawn came through in the end. Terrible. But okay, I don't think I could really do much about it. If he wants to do it, he does it. And there are fewer immediate threats to deal with. So bishop c8. I was sort of threatening something like rook b6. So played bishop c8. I mean, by the way, I've always got the possibility of a5 to b5. I was mentioning this quite a lot from time to time, trying to make it work. I never quite did it for me. But bishop d2 now, protecting the pawn. Black played knight e4 and bishop e1. And white has an idea here, which I'd spotted, and a structural idea. So maybe just have a little think to see whether you see it or not. White's actually threatening to play d3 and can follow up with e2 and have a very strong pawn wedge there. So that's what I've got. Black's done it to me, so I can do it to black. First of all, the problem is d3. There's some tactics with knight takes g3 and then the bishop coming in and forking. So I just played the safe move queen d1 first of all. Black played the move c7 to stop me from playing rook b6, and I played the move d3 and e2. So, I mean, that's one of the weird things about pawn sideways chess, is that would you ever guess that this started off as a semi-Slav? It looks impossible, right? So from that point of view, for sideways chess shares that a little bit with freestyle. That it's hard to tell what the starting position. It's starting position, but opening start was in sideways chess, just like freestyle. Impossible to know. But I mean, I can actually remember. I can sort of, I played this game and. The video had gone wrong, so I didn't have a full record. But I could remember. I could remember the game, and I just wrote it up myself somehow. Yeah, so it's it's possible to remember. Whereas freestyle chess, I've got no chance at all to do that. It's one of the for me, it's one of the biggest. I mean, I love it at times, and then I'm not particularly keen at times. But I think the biggest thing that remains for me is that I cannot remember games. I can't remember how they started. I can't remember really how they went either, and for me that's a big downside to freestyle chess. So knight g4 played, bishop d2. And we were already 33 moves in, right? So I feel I'm doing quite well. To be honest, I would expect that, positions probably balanced, but I wouldn't feel it amazing if I was told that white was slightly better here. My king side is weak, unfortunately. What's come of moving the pawns this way. But black's got problems dealing with the queen side, right? He really is struggling, and he's having to keep on adjusting his pawns somehow. And I thought I came up with a good plan here. I played queen c2. So just hinting at e4, I've got to watch out because that queen can come into e2. So I was really very keen to keep these pawns as a barrier and keep this queen sort of, passive on a6. You'll see. but that was the idea. And I decided simply that I was going to, invade around the b file. And I was getting quite optimistic at this stage, I do have to say. It's move 36. Stockfish hasn't. I've survived all that Stockfish can throw it at me, and I do actually have some interesting stuff because, okay, this is a pass a pawn. I mean, black might be able to play the pawn to b7, but if I've got control of the b file, then he's not going to manage, right? And his knight's far away. I was really thinking I just need to exchange off the queens here. And I've even got a chance that I could be better here. That was how I was thinking. So, So queen b3, king g7. And it must be said, I was a little bit sad I couldn't find a way to swap off the rooks and immediately force the exchange of queens. And I looked for a little while somehow, but the problem is if rook c8, I was a bit worried about queen c8 coming round to e6. In retrospect, I don't know whether I should have been. Maybe I could have found a way to deal with that, but I was worried about it, to have the queen coming round to e6, attacking my king's side. So what I came up with was to play the move queen b7. Rook b8, I expected that. Queen b8, I can't take the queen because of the rook, but that's fine. I don't like wasting that tempi. That's something I really dislike doing, wasting tempi like that. But I thought that I had queen b7. I mean, I thought, because I've got to watch out as well, he could play bishop c8 and just stop me from doing anything. But I thought I was just in time with queen b7. But what did Stockfish play here? Yeah, Stockfish played the move bishop takes d3, which really I found really gulling actually, because this is what I've been really working so hard to keep all these pieces, passive and block them and all of that, and then somehow, just at the moment when I'm about to exchange off queens, I fall for this tactic. So yeah, very upsetting. I mean, it wasn't 100% clear to me that this was working, right? I mean, there are big threats like bishop takes g3 and h2. But I thought that I had the move rook e1. I cover e2, and I'm going to play queen b1 to exchange off the queens. So that looked to me like it was quite decent. And I've got a runner, right? And if I get in queen b1, then he's just completely gone. Only I I yeah, I'd missed something somehow. So rook f5 is very unpleasant, hitting the rook on f3. Um, yeah, I mean, if I go queen b1 now, he goes rook f3. That's the big problem. And yeah, I thought I had something as well. It was a threat that I'd spotted before, but then I suddenly realized, yeah, this is pawn sideways chess. It's no threat at all. I played it anyway because I didn't see what else I could do. But after queen c8, the idea is rook f3. I've got queen g4. Maybe you can see what black did. Yeah, e6. So, yeah, black just readjusts his pawn structure. I mean, I played queen d8. I'm looking for rook f3, queen g5, which would still be fine. If black had a sense of humor, he could play f7 to e7. That would be possible. But Stockfish doesn't have a sense of humor and just played bishop g3 straight away. Yeah, I mean the win is basically what you'll see in the game. So bishop f2 check is a threat. That's checkmate. I just threw in bishop h6. I'm trying to distract the knight away from my king side, but black just ignored it with king h7, and after takes just plays rook f3, and I've just got no checks. And yeah, so in order to finish the game, I played queen g5, threatening queen g7 checkmate, but it's h2 check. And rook g3, checkmate there. So that's 49 moves, that was. And quite a good fight, I think, right? I think that, yeah, I mean, somewhere around here, right? I mean, I probably had some, well, I needed to make some consolidating move, you know, to make it happen. I was thinking, you know, maybe I should have gone rook b3 here. The only problem is black goes bishop c8. And then just, you know, holds me complete and stops me from playing queen b7. So the bishop goes back to c8. But okay, you know, I thought I was, you know, I didn't want to. I thought I really needed to rush in order to stop that from happening. But maybe that was the point, you know, that I should just say, okay, well, with bishop c8, he's more passive. So maybe then I can think of a move like maybe swapping off the dark squared bishops or something like that. You know, I can maybe improve my position in a different way after having made him passive. I think, you know, rook b3, defending everything, bishop c8, and maybe bishop b4 here. To me, that seems like that was possibly a pretty decent idea. Yeah, possibly I was doing quite well there, I think, you know, in that case. Yeah, so there we are. Yeah, I was quite pleased. I mean, of course, I don't really know how strong this Stockfish is. I guess it's not running on great hardware, and I don't know whether it's using the NNUE or not. I guess it would be, to be honest, since it's set up by guys who really know how this all works. Yeah, you know, I'm also giving it plenty of time. So, I mean, I think Stockfish, I upped its time quite a few times. So it probably ended up with about 12 minutes, you know, with increment as well. So, you know, I mean, I think you're getting a decent level of play there. But somehow I feel I'm closer to Stockfish at this chess than I am in normal chess somehow. But yeah, that's maybe a feeling, or you know, it could, of course, it could just be that Stockfish is weaker at this level of chess. But you know, obviously still pretty strong, you've got to say. But anyway, I hope that was an interesting game. Discovering new ways of playing positions, I think, with Stockfish, which is important. And you know, from time to time, I'm joining in, and you know, but I think, yeah, you know, this is a really good way of learning this sort of chess, because you know, Stockfish is showing you things that no other human player could. So, you know, brilliant. So there we are. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm going to do quite a few more, I think. So, you know, I hope I'm not alienating all my viewers. But it's I do think it's really interesting. It's not so different from chess, but the ability to open and close files to repair your pawn structure. It's a lot of what you often think about, when you're playing chess, but here it just gives you the power to do that immediately, which just opens up all sorts of dynamic possibilities there. So yeah, hope you're finding it interesting, and I think it's going to help my normal chess. So hope it'll help you too. Anyway, do give a like and subscribe if you like it. And otherwise, thanks very much for watching and hope to see you at the next one. Thanks for watching.